Great. Welcome back to the Overnight Success Podcast. I am excited today to have another guest on the podcast, Robert David Weeks. We were just talking before I clicked the record. We've known each other now for over 8 years, which is crazy because sometimes it feels like a one-page review of like, oh yeah, we've just known each other for a period of time, but we started breaking down those chapters and like we've been through ups and downs in ways, right? Like you've had different business ideas or different adventures. I've had different adventures and really excited to bring you on. I'll kind of go through your bio real quick and we'll jump in. But you've been through different things, but I love what you're focusing on right now, which is burnout, which a lot of entrepreneurs definitely understand. And I feel if you haven't felt that yet or felt it creeping in, then I don't know if you've fully gone through that full entrepreneur journey yet. But let's go into this. So as a strategist, consultant, and speaker, Artie, he supports founders and leaders who are still performing at a high level on the outside, but feel like they're about to break underneath. And I think that's so powerful because on social media, everybody is succeeding at life. And underneath, a lot of times we've got that imposter syndrome. We're barely keeping our head above water. And you are talking about that explicitly and helping founders and entrepreneurs with that. So Artie, welcome to the podcast. Really excited to kind of jump in on this conversation and say hi.
Yeah, pumped to be here. Yeah, wild to think like around 8 years that we've known each other, and fired up to be able to support the community too.
Yeah. I mean, it's always funny when we talk because we each have our own different adventures, and when we catch up, we need hours probably to catch up on things. But I mean, really on the side of burnout, right? Like you've got this podcast. First, let's kind of start with that. Make Burnout Extinct, which I love. And how long or what number episode podcast are you on right now?
So over 100 episodes right now, and which is wild to think about it. I've been going at it for podcasts. This is my 4th podcast I've done. And so I think about entrepreneurs, you can relate to sticking with something and staying consistent. My mind pinballs. And so really having to practice what I'm sharing with people and train as well in making sure that I stay consistent with the habits, showing up and being able to deliver. And it's 3 episodes that we do each week for the show and put it out there because it's myself, and then I'll have guests that come on to that share.
Yeah,
you're on too.
Yeah. We could talk, like you said, like we can always have these different conversations. We've been in each other's shoes a couple different ways, or at least close to each other, supported each other. But we'll get to the meat of this here as we go back into 2018 when we got together for a big conference, right? Like that's kind of really where this burnout piece started. But would love to learn a little bit more about your entrepreneur journey. I think back to DJ days and, typical entrepreneur, we never just jump straight into one business and just stuck there forever, right? There's a lot of those, I'll say learning moments along the way. I don't want to use the F word, but we'll say learning moments. Let's learn about some of those learning moments or like the ups and downs that got you to where you are today.
Yeah, well, so big overview, and then you can go wherever you want with this. It's like started off as a DJ back in 2014, so it's been over a decade now being in the game, and the ups and downs along the way. So start off as a DJ, did the nightlife scene, the parties. I remembered like being really undisciplined at that point, partying a lot. And so then I was like, okay, I got to figure out something else because I cannot see myself doing this for a decade. So that's where I went through what I call, the spaghetti phase of figuring it out with entrepreneurship, trying a bunch of different things. If that was getting into starting an app, being one of those guys that's like, I'm going to start this app and see if this is going to be the next big thing. And always feeling like it's supposed to be faster than it actually is, where you're like, why? Like I should be further along than I am right now. It's just realizing that's part of the journey. And so went through that, then got into planning. Like I did it was a college app. And then had like a website where college students could write articles. And then that through all of that led me to SmadCon, social media conference, where there was 500 people that came together for this back in 2018. And it was founders, marketers, content creators that were all coming together to connect and collaborate. And this is where it was like the win, like it hit. People resonated with it. I was fired up about it. And it was like, this is a thing I could see myself doing for a long time. And so that's where you kind of put everything into it, is what it feels like, and really try to take it all away. But what happened was one of my main reasons was afterwards for hitting burnout was the amount of lying that I was doing. So I lied a lot in that process, where lied about how I was feeling, lied about what was going on with attendees for the number of attendees that were at the event. That wasn't true at the time. Lying about just like financial financials and like what's going on that end of like not everything is fine, but trying to say like, oh, I feel I have to be perfect and feel like I have to have everything figured out, when behind the scenes it's a shit show is what it feels like. And so really having to, at the end when I hit my burnout, having to have a brutally honest conversation with myself and really understanding how I wanted to do business and my values. And there's like lessons, a lot of lessons in there that we can go into, but that moment for me was really understanding at the core, who the hell am I? What do I want? And how do I want to show up in the world and show up for others and take on the responsibilities and the mistakes that I make, taking ownership on that and being able to move through it. And on those moments is where you really get to see yourself, looking at yourself in the mirror and be like, who am I seeing on the other end of this? And am I proud of that person? Is that person someone that I can be excited to hang out with and know that they got my back? Really, those type of conversations are the ones that I really am focused on helping entrepreneurs in, is being able to really at the core begin to trust yourself is what it can feel like. And then from there, really knowing that your body is on your team is how I think about it. And then moving forward, after that, went through another trying to figure things out along the way for a few years, trying different things. I was working with marketing at an event venue, helping them out with consulting with marketing and social media, and then leading meditation classes, got into supporting people in public speaking. I was doing that professionally and still do that now for speaking, and just going through these cycles of just trying to figure it out and continue to stay in the game. So I know what it takes to be able to do that, and it's also honoring all those hard days that come along the way. But what's on the other side of that is this confidence that grows within you to know that you can handle any of those challenges that are going to come your way, the unexpected ones, and having that knowing is such a beautiful gift to be able to give to yourself for then how you show up differently for yourself, of who it is you're becoming, how you show up for, if it's family, to partners, to your friends, to the community, to how you show up to the world. It's such a beautiful gift to give to yourself to move through those hard days and be able to get on the other side of it too.
Wow. So we dove in deep, which I love, and I got to say a couple things to note there, and I want to go back in time a little bit. But one, your self-awareness is amazing, which I think comes from those life lessons, right? Like a lot of times on the entrepreneur side, there's just, I've got my business, this is who I am, and like that's as much as the self-awareness goes. So I love like that there's so much self-awareness kind of inside of there. And the other thing is you can tell through a lot of those different adventures that you are still at the end of the day very people focused, right? Like you are out there trying to help other people, which I love. I think building any business or product around the idea of helping other people is just so powerful. And so whether it was the SmadCon of bringing the right people together to help people with marketing, or especially when you started digging into the meditation side, and now I feel like this is very much in that same realm of entrepreneurs with burnout. It's more on that mental health more than anything, right? Like that's fantastic. And especially in a world where everybody is grinding and trying to get things done, nobody is talking about this mental health side of things, which I love. One thing I wanted to go back to, so let's go back before SmadCon, because the journey you just explained to me sounded like relationships with divorce and different pieces. But before then, you were kind of chasing to try to find that perfect fit, right? And as an entrepreneur, business owner, we've all been there, right? Probably a lot of failed or tried ideas. Before you found SmadCon, can you remember back to what exactly you were looking for? Like, what were you chasing? Can you think back to that?
Yeah, I was chasing for the big impact. Like
impact.
I feel
okay.
Yeah, I feel like as entrepreneurs, it's like you wanna make a change, something big, and that I felt that like I wanted to be able to do something that would have meaning and be able to really be supporting people for a certain service or a product. But just being able to make something in this world is so cool of an idea. And you can get carried away for what that can look like, thinking of success and what can be out there for messaging. But it's that whole idea of like, I can actually do this. I remember it was in college where I found out that you could build your own business was a thing. I didn't even know that really existed. Like I thought it was just like, something that you're born into. It was the thing, the feeling. Like I didn't even know this really existed as an option. And what comes back to, for me, why I got into entrepreneurship with building different businesses is because of freedom, like the freedom it provides. But at the same time, you don't realize that you're going to deal with the most amount of pain you've ever experienced in your career as you're going through that journey. But that's where you uncover a lot about yourself and understand how you're showing up into the world. And that's where the self-awareness comes in. And then this capacity, which is something something that I focus on supporting entrepreneurs is we talk a lot about the capacity in the business and being able to grow that and expand that. But you also have to, at the same time, make sure that your capacity as a human being to be able to handle that. And that those levels of success is so powerful and important to be able to make sure that you stay at that level and then continue to move forward and grow for yourself.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the nail there. A lot of times in business, we're looking at math problems, right? Do I have enough resources to fulfill? And you're not looking at, I guess, the heart problems or the human problems as far as, cool, I can do 80 hours a week, but what is that truly doing to myself? And like, how long can I do that? And I think we all believe that, oh, this is just a short season of time. And that season turns into years and definitely has its negative side effects.
Well, and it's realizing it's just one part of you too. A mentor of mine, John Butcher, talks about this, where it's just like it's one part of your whole life, and at the same time, you got to understand the seasons. As you're saying, it's like, what chapter are you in right now? So put that energy and build towards it, because I'm not into this whole like completely take a break. If you're in it and you're building something and you're wanting to create something big for that impact, but you also have to make sure you don't forget about your health along the way as you're doing that, and making sure that you're taking care of you and make sure you're energized to be able to handle the capacity of what's coming your way and then be able to move forward and be able to grow.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. So let's dig in a little bit more to SmadCon. So it happened in July of 2018, but I know that the process started a bit earlier. And so, like, how far back did you start this? I think I remember hearing at least 12 months, if not more.
Yeah, I mean, it was about 18 months is what
18 months of work.
Like a year and a half is from the start time for the idea. I was with the team at the time that I had, like, doing something else. I think that time it was helping out with the website it was creating that college website for students to come in, write articles, but at the same time, it was like this idea of marketing and social media. Back in 2018, it was growing, but not to where it is today. And so it was looking back at, oh, cool, like this could be a great opportunity to help people to connect, to collaborate. It could be a lot of fun, bringing people together. That felt right. But at the same time, I had no experience in building out a conference. And then the people that were on my team didn't have any experience either. We were all like 20-somethings being like, okay, this could be cool. And I remember then sending out, or one of my team members, if I remember it right, sent out an email. We looked up an article on like Forbes for like the top 10 marketers for that year and just sent out cold emails. And 4 of them replied back and were like, oh yeah, this would be fun. Like, I mean, they didn't say like this would be fun, but like they were in to do it. And that's really what kickstarted this whole thing of like, oh, this is possible. Like this could be a thing. And that got me really excited. And then we just dove into it. And there's a lot of pain in that. As I said, with one of my main reasons for hitting burnout was the amount of lying that I was doing. And we advertised like, oh, it's going to be like a 3,000 event, 3,000 attendee event. Like that's the goal. But we didn't reach that. And so it was having to change then the marketing. At the time, it's like you can feel like you got to go out there and do a lot of this pretending of everything's all right. Like I got these big goals and these big visions. But at the same time, you got to make sure you don't lose your soul along the way in that process. Because there can be that moment of ignoring what's going on within your body and the signals that your body is telling you of like, okay, hey, like, is this really the truth that you're sharing to people? Are you really fine? Like when people ask you how you're feeling, mm-hmm. Are you really have everything together? When people are asking you like, how's everything going? So just being able, I think the closer you can be to sharing really what's going on and have that courage to be able to do that while still realizing where you're headed and that vision and the goals that you want to get after. When you can be able to have both of those in how you're communicating and sharing with other people, I think that's where the magic is for what's possible for these, for your life, for the business. That's where these whole new doorways that open up, and it can be wild to think about what is possible for you when you come at it in that way.
Yeah, that's good. And I think this was an interesting scenario because you're trying all these different things and they were kind of sticking or not sticking. Then all of a sudden, like, this took hold, right? And not only did it take hold, but like you fully committed and you're all in. and then it starts to get away from you a little bit. And I'll say, I remember back to SmadCon, this was not an ego trip where like your face was attached to everything. Really, you didn't sit there at the front of it and say, hey, look at me. Truly, you were more of trying to create an amazing experience for everybody that attended. And obviously there's got to be ego in there somewhere. No, entrepreneurs aren't doing this just for the sake of it, but yours was very light compared to what I've seen other people do. But it did start to get away from you, and so you're kind of falling off the track here, right? And you're really trying to understand what decisions to make. You don't want to let it go so far, but you also want to make sure that it gets to the station, right? Like you want to get there. So like you're balancing a lot there. And to your point, you're lying in one breath, you're lying to people kind of saying these things, but in the other, you also know you're drowning. And basically, as I put it, like there's not much positive happening other than people are still kind of signing up for it. But you've created this thing and you can't back out at this point. So you're past the point of no return.
Yeah, well, and that can come up where you can have the nights where you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, what the am I doing? Yeah. I feel anyone can relate to that, of those moments of like, what is going on right now? And it's remembering that this is temporary. That's what I talk about, is that whatever you're going through right now for the emotions and that bubbling up, it's temporary. The only way it stays permanent is if you stay stuck in it. And it can take you to a one-way ticket to hitting burnout if you're not listening to signals from the body. And those can be the results that happen. But if you can honor that this is coming up, and again, have the tools and strategies that I share to be able to handle it, then you can move through it and it's going to pass. And goes back to like a story on this with the event that ties into it. You know, I blew $250,000 on this event. It was all of my life savings into this. I went all in on it. As you said, it was about bringing people together of like this. It was just epic of an idea. Like it was awesome that people were coming together, but it's like, this is going to be cool. Like this is coming out of nowhere. Like this didn't exist 18 months ago, you know, like, and so it was cool to just witness building something like that and then actually be doing it and building it with the team and, you know, with people that were coming in supporting volunteers and like, you know it, you saw it behind the scenes. And so what happened was, I remember it was a few weeks out before the event. I remember my team member came in and she was like, hey, did you read this contract for this hotel? For the speakers, because we had speakers coming in. It was like, I forget the exact number. We had a total of over 40 speakers coming in. And then there was a lot that were coming in from out of town, and we were putting them up at the hotel rooms. And it was outside of downtown for where the hotel was. And I remember her coming up and telling me this. I'm like, yeah, like I looked at it. Well, she goes, I just got off the phone with the point of contact at the hotel, and they say we don't have it for the last night for these speakers. And this is a few weeks out from the event. And that's where I had the moment of, oh, shit. Like, I made the mistake. Like, that was on me. And it was just that feeling where it's like the tingles in the back of the neck. This, like, you just feel you want to curl up and get away
Cold
from
sweats.
everyone. Yeah, and that is where you have to step into it courageously and be like, I got to figure this out. And so I remembered telling her, like, hey, like, because she was great with this, and it was definitely the better move was like, let's tell them right away. Like, let's tell these speakers what's going on, share what's happening. But I didn't do that. I said, let's wait a little bit, give us some more time. I'll figure out basically how I was thinking about it was like, how do I spin this? Like, how do I spin this as a positive and something good and lie? Going back to one of the main reasons for hitting my burnout, how do I spin this in a way where we still have everything figured out and we're okay? And what happened was just like a few days before, giving them at least some lead time. I remember I was the one who did it. I was like, hey, we got a surprise for you. Last night, you're going to be coming on downtown, and we're going to have you in these, you know, this hotel. It's going to be a great experience. It's going to be awesome. And it was having to remember all these stories that I'm telling these speakers, because then what happened was by doing that lie, I then had to now have multiple conversations and create other lies. And so I had one speaker coming in being like, oh, that's so awesome and so excited, thank you. Another one being like, well, why can't I just stay at this hotel? Like, you know, wouldn't that be all right? And then I had another one being like, all right, are you sure this is like really what's going on? I'm calling bullshit on this. Like, I feel like there's something else behind the scenes. And now I'm having to have all these separate conversations where I think about it by being able to share what's really going on and the truth. Yeah, you're going to have people that are going to get pissed off and they're going to have their issues, but at least they know what's going on from the truth standpoint. And so then all those other conversations, there's not going to be as many that I'm going to have. But what happened was got them all there. Then that first day of the event, I'm not even able to go up on stage and welcome people because I'm grabbing the luggage from the hotel and having to bring it to all these other like hotels. There's like I think around 5 different hotels, had to move all that luggage into it. And so it was just like these things that started to stack up for my body, where I was feeling mentally exhausted, physically exhausted, and I just was not listening to my body. I was suppressing it, ignoring it, kept saying I'll get to it later. I got all these other challenges and problems coming in. But the issue is, by keeping it for later, that's where then I hit burnout, where it's like, for me, how I define burnout, it's a little bit different from feeling just exhausted. Having a major life transition being forced on you by your body. And so for me, that was barely able to get out of bed, struggling, not able to really be able to be present and show up. For going through that process, a lot of it could have been avoided if I was taking the time to listen to my body and also focus on being brutally honest with what's going on. And that was the key lesson I learned after blowing the $250,000, is the importance of being brutally honest with yourself and with others and what's going on. Because at the end of the event, I had business debt that got collected, and so I took that on personally for taking accountability with the mistake. And I remember having to send the email out. That was a moment to decide how I want to move forward in business. I remember sending the email out to vendors that still owed money to, and having to say in the email subject line, I f***ed up. Sending that, and then having to explain, hey, can you give me more time? And all of them, like, if I'm looking back, all of them were open to that, because you want the money. You give that open time, which I was so grateful for, to be able to do that. But that was a moment of having to really step into it and make that hard decision of, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to lead in that way, and I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect, but to the best of my ability, I'm going to focus on this as a value of mine moving forward, and how I do business, how I live my life. And that was the biggest lesson that came through. Was what happened after doing that was a feeling of relief, of just like, I did it in that moment. Then the stress comes back, and how am I going to figure this out? But at least having that recognition for myself of like, okay, there is a relief here by doing this, and let me continue to make sure I focus on this. And that, it took a long time, but it was having to really work through that process, and also having to tell the truth with other people who trusted me, who put money into this event. So it wasn't just my own money, but it was others' money as well. And so having to have those hard conversation to explain what was going on, and being able to also be brutally honest with what was happening, that's where I felt that relief too, and started to stack up and move forward in that way.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, you had a lot of ups and downs there, but like, you found yourself in this, right? A lot of times, like, to your point, you could have crawled under a rock and then just, you could have ignored emails and all these things. Like, I got to commend you on that. Now let's kind of go, I don't know if it was a month later, but you start climbing, I'll call it a hole. Like, you start climbing out of that hole, and probably kind of started leading you on your journey to where you are today from a burnout perspective, right? In a lot of the conversations you have today on your podcast, SmadCon was like the trigger of this, right? Like, you identified that. So I'm curious, so as an entrepreneur that might have gone through something similar, where they blew up a contract deal or something like that, or they went really far in debt and are trying to dig themselves out, what are some of the lessons for them, or what how do you start digging yourself out of that hole? And here you are, now we are years later, hopefully you're out of the hole, the hole has been filled in, all of those things. I'd love to kind of hear, let's say over the next 5 minutes, kind of like that journey from, okay, here's that milestone in history, and like, here's how I kind of brought myself back up to where I am today.
Yeah, well, and it's remembering that the hard days are always gonna be there too as you go along, and at any level of success, those come in. And so for me, it's the simplest way I say it for how you make burnout extinct is you have more energizing habits than draining habits in your life. It comes back to the habits that you're doing every day, where I talk about it, you're in this battle with the burnout beast, and your habits decide where you land on the spectrum, where on one end you've hit burnout, on the other end you made burnout extinct. And it's realizing that every day you decide where you land on the spectrum, but with the energizing habits, it's starting small, being able to build the foundations of these small habits that are going to energize you. Simply put, like working out, making sure you're creating movement throughout your day. If that is staying hydrated, drinking your water, that's eating the foods that are energizing for you, being flexible with your habits. And so if you typically do 30-minute workout or an hour workout, but you only have 5 minutes, 5 minutes is better than no minutes for putting in the reps for these habits. But it takes time. It's not an overnight process for making burnout extinct, and it's not an overnight process for hitting burnout, because your body is giving you signals to let you know when you're moving towards hitting burnout. But it's for you to actually listen to those signals and make those adjustments and those changes to your behavior and to your habits to move forward. And that comes with a lot of pain in that process. And there can be a lot of different emotions like anger, frustration, guilt, shame, that all comes up. And in my years of after burnout, that I felt those moments of the frustration and the guilt of what I did, and then the anger of like, why am I in this situation right now? And then taking on the accountability and starting small with these habits to build my way back up. I mean, there was a lot of those moments of hard decision coming, have to honor that, and then move forward. That's where I got into helping out with the event venue as a consultant with marketing, having to have those conversations and support. That's where it's like doing the meditation classes. So did that, and then COVID hit and everything shut down. And so this event venue, I wasn't able to have income coming in from it. Like there was a, you could see at the end where the light was starting to close down for the potential of revenue with this event venue. And we had those conversations. And so now I have to figure out something else because I'm not going to be able to get that income coming in. And so that is where I then had to make the really hard decision to move back in with my parents because I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. Financially, I was struggling. Emotionally and physically, I was struggling. So moved back in with them as a late 20-something. There was a lot of shame around that, moving back in with my parents and then trying to figure out my next move in business. And that's where then I did a cold outreach to a endurance company and was like, hey, I want to help out with this event. And just did it, sent it out. They're like, come on out. Then was able to build a relationship with them. And then that led to supporting people that wanted to get better at their public speaking. And that's where I was able to help clients get on, like a client get on the TEDx stage, and then helping a professional musician to be able to step up on stage and be able to share from her heart how she felt. And then going through all these other going back to the spaghetti phase, all these other things that I'm trying out to see what's working until it got to this point where I'm like, oh, looking back, I've been in this game, especially with the ups and downs and having those breaks, but for over a decade. And so I know what it takes to stay in the game. And then I realized that what really can cause a big issue for entrepreneurs is that you burn out before your best work gets realized and it comes into reality. And there is a lot of those, like, is this supposed to be this way? Is there something I'm doing that's wrong with me, of like, why am I having hard days? And when you just realize that the hard work is the work, it then becomes a lot less painful to keep showing up and staying consistent with those habits. And then that's where you can start to get excited for this momentum of that you're building for the vision with the business and for your own, who you're trying to become, your quality of life. And that's where you can start to realize that you have the capabilities within you to be able to handle whatever's going to come your way for challenges. When you've put in the reps for energizing habits, you build that trust within yourself. And then from there, that confidence can expand. And then you're like, all right, it doesn't matter what it's going to be, I'm going to handle it and be able to move forward and stay in the game longer. And that, going back to that gift that I talked about at the beginning, having that gift is so incredible when you can get it on a core heart level of like, this is what's up, this is how I'm showing up, I got this. That's where then these whole new doorways open up for possibilities for your life.
I love that. And I've heard this phrase before, and like I think you're speaking to it greatly, of things are happening for you, not to you. And you took that and you ran with it. And I think that's great, because I know for me personally, one of my like biggest fears in life is failure. And like I'm always afraid that like you just, as if I'm gonna fail and just never get back up. And I think sometimes we avoid that so much, or we ignore that. And I think for you are where you are today because of those moments, and now you're able to teach on it. And I think like, and you remember it too, like you sit with it and like you truly embrace that. And I think that's powerful, because sometimes we try to ignore. It's like, oh yeah, I made that mistake a year ago, that's just something we don't talk about anymore, right? I think that's a very common mistake.
Well, and it's in the mistakes, there's always a lesson in the mistakes. And then once you get that lesson, letting go of the mistake, realizing that comes with the territory of being an entrepreneur and building the business, is that the mistakes are going to have the greatest lessons that you can learn. And the bigger the mistake, the bigger the lesson. But you got to learn that lesson and then be able to implement that in your life. And that's where you can continue to move forward, rather than staying stuck in the same loop where it's like, I tried this one thing, it didn't work, now I'm back what feels like starting from scratch again, and then I'm going to try this other thing back from scratch, and you go into this loop. And then that habit is what it's building for your life, can then move into other areas of life. That could be with health and fitness, that could be with relationships, that could be with how you're showing up for family. Like you get into this settling energy of just like the fear of not being able to kind of move through it and move to the new level. And that's where this natural resistance can come up from the body. And the reason for that is, with anything new, it can create uncertainty for the body. And that's where you can get into a stress response from the body, where then I call it, the burnout beast is trying to pull you back to your old ways and your old habits and your old patterns. And that's where you get stuck in this loop. And that's where you're like, why am I should be further along by now. What the hell is going on? And when you can honor that resistance, but then move through it and realize what's going on, then you're able to move to the next level.
I love that. Well, I think that is a perfect way to kind of wrap this up. I feel like we're at the end of the movie where, all the life lessons have been made. You can, you draw the conclusion from it. So this is great, Artie. I really appreciate it. And I think burnout is such an important topic. We've all dealt with it. And again, sometimes we just turn our head away from it and don't fully embrace it. So I love what you're doing on the podcast. For those of you listening, Make Burnout Extinct, over 100 episodes, which is great. And they're easily consumable, right? Like they're not hour long each, but it's 3 days a week, which is crazy, which consistency, I gotta tell you what, like you're beating me in a lot of different places when that comes. So congratulations on that. Also seeing that we can find you on all major social media platforms. So how can we find you? Is it Robert David, or how can we find you?
So for mostly all of them, it's like RD Weeks or something. Like it might be RD Weeks 50 because it was taken on TikTok.
Okay. Yeah. We can put the direct links in the show notes.
Yeah, I was about to say, if there's a way to put all that in the description so people can click on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, and you have a free resource here on the Make Burnout Extinct podcast. Tell me about that.
Well, so it's more so for all these episodes, there are the tools. So I know we weren't able to get into it too much for the tools and the strategies, but all of them are there based off of the challenges you're dealing with. Like one example would be how to bounce back fast after an overwhelming morning. And so it's these ways, these strategies that you can implement right away, right after these episodes to move forward. So that's where it goes back to it's around, some of them are like around 20, 30 minutes to take in and then implement. It's being able to do stuff practically that can help you out right away.
Yeah, and I think we've learned a lot from your story, but if you want the true consumable points 1, 2, and 3 on how to handle burnout, go look at any of those episodes for the most part. So you've got 100 to choose from. Figure out what is resonating with you most. Go find it. Might be episode 45 or whatever the episode is, and go from there. So that's great, man. I love the lessons that we learned, your ups and downs, how aware you are of everything. But people need to find you. I think burnout is real. Like we were talking before, feeling that a little bit here, burning the candle from both ends, looking for more time. We, as business owners, we want to create a new lifestyle, and sometimes we just create this really complicated 80-hour-a-week job. So get back to the life that you kind of set out to. So thank you, RD, for joining me today. Looking forward to continuing to connect more and learn where you're at 1, 2, 5 years from now.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and appreciate being able to support the community.
Yeah.